This is the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zella. So John comes on today and tells me right before the show starts, he's like, "Hey, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna get drunk." And I'm a little confused because, buddy, we're tied 1-1 going back to Nassau Coliseum. Is everything okay?
I didn't say it was sad drunk. Maybe it's happy drunk. I'm so stoked for it to go back to the Coliseum, though, and I'm not going to get drunk. I'm almost done with a single beer, so I think I'll be okay.
Oh, all right, cool. So you're not a lightweight, is what you're trying to claim?
No, I'm definitely a lightweight, but one isn't it? It's like halfway through the second one, but now I'm tethered now to my microphone and headphones, so I can almost reach the fridge, but not exactly.
Yeah. Hey, bud, we passed right over episode 60 last week and didn't even mention that we're 60 episodes in, this being the 61st. So congratulations, pal.
Yeah, you too. It's been good.
Yeah.
It's been hard. Like this, I know it seems like we're just like coming on. This is obviously not to you, but like to listener, yeah, it's not easy. This is a little bit of a grind sometimes, and looking forward to some summer, but for now, I'd rather talk Isles hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's head over to On the Island, brought to you by DraftKings. The second round is in full swing, and the action increases from game to game. This is where the contenders are separated from the pretenders. To give you some skin in the game, DraftKings will be offering free-to-play pools every day of the basketball playoffs, offering players a free shot up to $10,000 in total cash prizes. That's up to $10,000 in total prizes up for grabs each day. The best part is that it's free to play. DraftKings free-to-play protocols are easy to enter. Just download the DraftKings app, go to pools, and choose from the wide variety of free contests for an opportunity to win cash prizes. Questions will range from which team will hit the most threes to which team will score first. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your money at your own convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings app now and use promo code THPN when you sign up to get your free shot at up to $10,000 in total prizes every day of the basketball playoffs. Head to DraftKings Pools page to get your shot at huge cash prizes. That's promo code THPN for a limited time only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for more details. All right, so let's talk about the first game over on the island, despite the fact that this was at TD Garden. So really, I guess we're in Boston for now. But they dropped the first game, game 1, 5-2 against the Boston Bruins. And I didn't get to watch the game at first. I went back and I rewatched it later. And the first thing I noticed before I watched it, I was like, wow, Islanders got outshot 40-22. It's not atypical for the Islanders to do, but they also gave up 5 goals. What did you see in that game that they got outshot 40-22?
I think, and I may have mentioned it to you and Joe in our group chat, it looked a lot like one of the games from the Lightning Isles series last summer. It was just a better team being better, and the Islanders just couldn't, usually they bend but don't break, but against really good teams, they seem to, and they did that against the Penguins too. I don't want to say they got lucky out of that first round. And, we talked a little bit about, obviously a lot about it last week, but they managed to figure out how to outplay them. They figured out a way to just win the games. And that's what Barry Trotz will say at every post game. We figured out a way to win. They don't really care if they get outshot 100-3 if they win 2-1. I think as fans, that's frustrating, but either way, in this particular game, they didn't really look good. They just got outplayed really at their own game. They weren't allowed to set the tempo. The Bruins are just really good. They were all over them.
Yeah, so you see here, I have noted the Pasternak hat trick. Krejci had 3 assists. Taylor Hall had a goal. I think the first line had a total of 6 combined points.
Their best players were their best players.
Right, and that's the thing. And I was going to ask, is the Bruins' obvious superior skill a narrative moving forward? And I ask this because, you think about the skill, and I feel like not sometimes, and I'm guilty of this. You go straight to the forwards and you think about the forwards, but is their superior skill overall outmatched to the Islanders? Like, are the Islanders defensemen, say, not skilled enough to contain the perfection line of the Boston Bruins?
I think it's going to be hard for them to do that on a consistent basis. They're going to score goals, right? 3 is a lot, right? And I forget that it was one player. Think about it as the line that they were a +3 or a +4 depending on who the players are on the ice. The Islanders, and I don't want to skip ahead to game 2, but it's clear they can skate with these teams, right?
Yeah, I
And
think so.
until we see the rest of the series and don't have 2020 kind of like hindsight looking at it, because looking back, I'm going to keep reflecting on that Lightning series because I think it's important, because it was a very clear difference with the Capitals and the Flyers last postseason, where the Islanders were the better team, and it was, they lost games, but they were all in OT. Like, they were always really close. Like, the Islanders
Right.
looked like they were the better team, and even if they lost, they looked like they were playing pretty well. There
Yeah.
weren't these moments like we saw in the past, and then they get to the Lightning series, and okay, they squeaked out 2 wins, but I forget what game Eberle scores that 2-on-1 from the pass from Anders Lee to win it. It was double overtime or whatever. They were lucky to win that game. Like, that wasn't like, oh, the Islanders dominated and they just happened to win 2-1. It was, they were just trying to bend and not break the entire game. This first game, they were just like, it was like, that gif from the Mighty Ducks where Averman's like, they're bigger, they're stronger, they have more facial hair. It was just this, even beside the point that the Islanders have quite a bit of playoff experience to this point, and they've won a number of series, even the play-in last year.
Yeah.
You're playing a Bruins team that is just, it's in their culture. It's beyond just the players, right? You can just keep inserting them. The footnote to this is like the opposite. It's true with Toronto.
Yeah.
They do not have any of that. No one has learned how to win. They just keep shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know what that is. Just the room is just sour. Something's going on over there. But the Bruins are the opposite, right? Like, they know how to win. There's not a point in a series where I would count them out, right? So the Islanders have to play like they did in game 2 to move forward. If they play like game 1, it's going to be short.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Bruins too is when you think about it, they're the Islanders just better. They play the
better,
same,
more experienced.
Not even just the experience, because take away Krug, take away Chara. Now you have just Bergeron and Marchand, who have been there, and Krejci, who has been there for the majority of their postseason runs. But everybody else is throughout that lineup is kind of newish, and Pastrnak.
But they're always in the game. They're always in the postseason. So it's it's good experience every single year. And even just skating with those guys for a few years, you kind of pass that torch. Bergeron essentially, is more or less. I mean, if he wasn't already always the captain, if it wasn't for Chara, you know what I mean? Like, it's. I think they just have it in the room, and it's the culture, it's the coaching, it's the organization, it's the fans. Like, it's just this whole thing.
My point to that, though, is we have the same culture and consistency, just less skill. They have that perfection line. They have that line that's going to take over a game. You can almost compare Krejci and Taylor Hall's as a second line to our second line, being that of Beauvillier, Nelson, and Bailey. That's a skill line for sure. But
it can be. I think it's there's a huge difference in the consistency, and
right,
that might be the key word,
right?
For the
and
Islanders.
It's a small sample size for Hall over in Boston, so you don't really know how much consistency he'll have.
He's never played with someone like DeBrusk on a regular basis. So I think this is, whatever. So Krejci, he's never played with a guy like that within a room that's gonna prop him up and be there for him and support him when he isn't scoring goals.
Yeah.
Like, the Islanders don't. If someone's not going, like, they did that in game 2, right? And they're starting to kind of do that in the playoffs, where these, Barzal, and we'll talk about him later, isn't going. So these other guys are stepping up, and they are finding a way to win these games with secondary scoring.
Yeah, so the Bruins' big guns are getting it done. Taylor Hall's for the first time playing in a winning culture, and it's working for him. And I don't know why everybody's shocked by this, but it's happening.
When has he ever played with anybody?
Exactly.
With any amount of skill.
Oilers,
on the Oilers,
Coyotes,
in theory, right?
In theory, yeah, they had the skilled players, but they didn't have the players with the experience to go on deep runs in the playoffs, so they never really made it anywhere. This is the first time Taylor Hall's made it out of the first round. This is the first time he's been in the second round. So, that after the first 2 lines, there's a little bit of a drop off. Besides Charlie Coyle, who we'll talk about a little later in game 2, but look at Sorokin. He gives up 4 goals against, and that's the first time in his 5 starts he had given up 4 goals in the playoffs. I don't want to say that he looked bad because I don't think it was on him in game one. I think that he made the necessary saves, maybe not the saves that you're not supposed to make, like he had been in the first, couple of games against the Penguins.
Those momentum changing saves.
Right.
The
Right.
knob your stick, the skate, like in the Penguin series, he was doing that.
Yeah. But a
Especially
lot of
game
it,
5.
had to do with the Islander blue line. The blue line didn't look that great at all in game one. Pelican Pulak are always pretty good. After them, it's hit or miss. And I thought Nick Leddy, he's been and he continues to have a really bad postseason. I don't know what's going on with him.
He's not skating.
He's not skating, and for some reason he keeps flubbing on passes. Like, it's weird. Like, there's a hole in his stick. He tries to pass the puck off and he flubs on it, or it's just not a strong, confident pass, and it's getting intercepted, or it's landing on the stick of the opponent. So I'm not really too sure what's going on with Nick Leddy right now, because he did have such a fantastic regular season, and he kind of like switched roles with Scott Mayfield, who's playing fantastic.
I think his play is definitely evened out. Leddy, not so good. I think game 2 looked a lot better for him. I don't, game 1 was, everybody was like, the going back to your original question, I think the Bruins are just a team like the Lightning and any really good team that's just going to exploit whenever you make a mistake. And the Bruins just like 4 or 5 times in that game, I forget if there was an empty net goal, or I think maybe I got aggravated and turned it off or something. But at least 4 times from what I saw, they were just, every time the Islanders made a mistake, it was going the other way every single time. And in game 2, it was the opposite. The Islanders were finding a way. But we saw the Bruins came back. I went into the kitchen for, a few minutes and came back, and it was like, what happened?
Right.
How did it become, how did they tie the game? And that's a team, I think, as you said, that was, a very good comparison, that the Bruins are just the Islanders in the future. The Islanders can continue to win these postseason games and series.
Yeah.
You could never count the Islanders out for the most part. If they're within 2 goals, it's doable to get them to OT. Like, they can usually make it happen. But so the same thing goes for the Bruins. These are really gonna be tight games as long as the Islanders play well.
Yeah, this series just oozes game 7, and if it gets there, it's gonna be a battle. This whole series is gonna be a grind, and whoever comes out of that Lightning Hurricane series has got to be licking their chops, because that's a skill series. I don't know how much they're going to bang bodies over there, but in this series, they're going to bang bodies. You're seeing it already. There's tons of hits already being thrown around.
I think the Canes are a little tougher. Look at how they played the Islanders a couple seasons ago.
Yeah,
they beat the Islanders at their own game too. They were no joke. And I think personnel changes, and probably since then, but I don't think the philosophy changed. Coach is still the same. A lot of the main guys are still there. Their goaltending is shaky. We'll talk about that series later.
Yeah. I just think they're a little more run and gun than they are, grindy, like these two teams can be.
Well, these are playoff. These teams play playoff hockey all the time, and that's the difference. When they get to this point, it's just doing what you got to do.
The one silver lining in game 1, though, was that Anthony Beauvillier continued to stay hot. And the Islanders power play got going a little bit on his. He opened the scoring for the series with the first goal of the game in game 1 on the power play. Deflection, very nice deflection by Beauvillier. He's got a hot hand right now. He's playing real well. So if there is any silver lining to game 1, I thought Beauvillier looks and continues to look real good.
He has speed that the Bruins really don't have an answer for, which is why I think, and we'll talk about them, which is why I think that third line is successful right now.
Yeah, let's talk about game 2, where the Islanders flipped the script and they won 4-3 in overtime. And the shot count was much better and much closer. Still outshot, but only by 4.
That's like an error if you didn't see it. Like,
sure,
Bruins were at home. Maybe they give him a couple extra that were going.
I did feel like at the beginning of the first period, the Islanders had only like maybe 2 shots 7 minutes in, and I
Oh, it
thought it
was
was
not pretty.
questionable.
It wasn't pretty to start the game. I'll say that.
No, it wasn't a pretty start to the game, but I thought there was a questionable few shot attempts that could have been counted as shots. But nevertheless,
But before you move on, really quick, I will give some credit, and I have not done this in the 10 years that NBC Sports has done the broadcast, but I
oh
will
boy,
give Joe Micheletti, former Islanders broadcaster, for those who you remember, for those of you who will remember, my goodness, maybe the beer's really getting to me. John Forsland and Joe Micheletti do keep going back to high danger chances are still close. High danger chances are still close. And even in that first game, for a while, they were really close. So the Islanders are getting those chances and they're limiting the other teams. The difference is the Bruins will find a way to capitalize at some point, right? But the Islanders, where they keep saying where it counts, and I think that's really important as we move forward. If the shots aren't 42-39, if they are, I mean, 2 straight games of 40 shots against, Trotz is probably not happy about that.
Yeah. That's actually that's a good point too, because the acting third member of NHP actually just tweeted something out the other day about NBC. I think it was for Game 7, and before the game started, he was talking about Sidney Crosby this, Evgeny Malkin that, and now let's go talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning series. And it was like, wait a minute, what about the Islanders?
31 Thoughts was like that. I got really, and I'm not one of these, and it's so funny that you brought this up because I thought about it and I honestly forgot. I don't want to be one of these Islander fans that like, where's my national attention for the
right?
Because I don't care, right? Like Islander fans, like the best, and this is not because we're included in this at all, but like the Islanders media, yes, I consume. I'm a huge hockey nerd. I'm going to consume all that. I listen to too many podcasts. I barely have time in the week to do it, especially because I don't commute anymore.
Right.
So I have no time for this, but I consume it. I read it all day, Athletic, all this kind of stuff. And like, I really don't get bent out of shape that the Islanders aren't included because they're not, and that's fine. And I don't, as long as they're not bashing the Islanders all the time, fine. This isn't like Zen and Konopka years ago being like, fuck you, TSN. Which was fantastic. Please go look that up. This is like 2011. This is the fight prior to the fight night, if I'm not mistaken. It was like around that same time.
I think you're right. I know what you're talking about.
And, but I was listening to 31 Thoughts. And in the beginning, Jeff Merrick was like, oh, we're going to talk about the Islanders and their fans. They made that, they made 5,000 seem like 20,000.
Yeah.
And I was really amped up. I'm like, you know what? This sounds like just like, even if it's a brief little conversation, because they don't often talk about the Islanders, mainly because Lou doesn't give out information, and Elliot Friedman has nothing to riff off of. So I'm not surprised on that particular show that they don't talk about the Islanders. But they did exactly what NBC did. It was like, well, what about the Penguins? Are they going to have to retool? Are they going to trade any of these guys? Are Malkin and Crosby going to retire Penguins? And I'm like, there's still hockey to be played. There's like another team in that series that's going to continue to play hockey. And you're worried about this weird off-season thing. It just didn't make any sense to me. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not that fan that's like, where's my team? You're talking about I'm only going to listen when you talk about my team.
No, but you're a true hockey fan, and there's more hockey to be played. So why are we not talking about what's coming next?
But they do it all the time. It's when it's a certain team and it's certain players. It's about Toronto and it's about Pittsburgh and it's about Chicago. Hasn't been anything for years, and it's like, well, I don't want to hear about these teams.
Yeah,
I bet they're
I don't know
off-season problems. That's not right now. Talk about the playoffs right now.
I don't know, and we're getting sidetracked, so this is gonna be the last thing I say about it. But I don't know that when the Islanders officially move into the UBS arena, if they become a middle market team to maybe a large market team, and if that changes things, because I feel like maybe that has something a little bit at least to do with it.
I think it depends on how this series goes, so that you can point to, they got to the second round for 3 years in a row, or they made it to the Eastern Conference Final 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
They play, if they make it to, they lose in overtime in Game 7. It's really hard to not argue they didn't make it to the Eastern Conference Final for all intents and purposes. So I think it matters like how they go out. If they get swept the rest of the way, it's hard, it's hard to keep them in the conversation.
Right.
They're not a team that's drawing a lot of money. They're not worth a lot of money. It's kind of tough, those big markets. If they're like the Lightning, right? Like they got to really, the Lightning were just really, really good, and they weren't just beating expectation; they were the bar. Other teams had to
Right.
meet the Lightning. The Islanders are not that, right? Like
Well,
they're the
here's the
team that are
thing
going to
though.
beat the numbers, and they keep showing up. They're a ratty team. They show up whenever when you don't want them there,
Yeah.
and they play well, right? Like when you least expect it. And I don't know. I think it raises them quite a bit. I think the
Here's the
press are going to
thing.
be really impressed with it. The linchpin to this, and I like this point. I like that you brought it up, brother. There's an opportunity there when the press are just going to have a better experience, and then to watch the Islanders and have them play
Right.
well, they're going to have their attention. So
Right.
almost forget about this playoff series, right? They'll talk about it
Right.
regardless of how it turns out the rest of the way, but you're going to have their attention. The arena has to be killer, and you've said that even the bones of it look great, but they have to play well there, right?
Yeah.
Like the game experience is one thing, but they have to play well,
Yeah.
and that's going to be the difference. They're going to have the attention
Right.
and the eyes and ears of the hockey world. You have to make it worth it. They
Right.
have
And
to
I
go in
don't
and
foresee that changing either. Trotz isn't
no,
going anywhere, and Lou's still going to be around. So I think the winning culture is going to stick. I think the bigger, better state of the art arena is going to make them, maybe a more relevant team in the media, because maybe they're going to bring in more money. Look at all the sponsorships that I keep,
if they
tw-
win, they
look,
have to win. That's
right.
my
They're going to
point.
have to win,
You're going
I
to have
think
it for that
that's
first year, but
well, right, and I think that's what's going to stick. I think the winning's going to stick. Look at all the sponsorships I keep tweeting out that they keep emailing me about. Heineken and all. Now there's also a bunch of local Long Island sponsorships as well. But these big name sponsorships are huge for them. Those are money makers.
yeah,
So you might be looking at a small market team, or I guess medium market team. Um, moving up a notch, and the fans, they I know this is COVID's almost gone, or whatever, but and everybody's get back in the stands, so maybe it's just the initial rush, but you clearly see what Islander fans can do, and when there's going to be 17,000 of them there, it's going to be an experience. So maybe
yeah.
they become this large market team, or am I saying that right? Is it large market, big market?
Big market teams. I think they definitely solidified themselves in that middle for sure.
Middle for sure.
Yeah, I
But
mean it's large market teams. You're going into the Bostons and the
right,
Rangers and all that stuff.
right.
Um,
But
they
is Long
move.
Island going to be a destination again?
I mean, for then you're talking about free agencies and free agents and different things like that. It's a good
It,
question. It depends if they really give the Bruins a run for it.
yeah.
And also, the side note to all this, especially with free agency, is there's a whole lot of other questions to answer
But
between
did it
now and
already
then.
start? You have
I mean, if
Sorokin who came over. That might have been the start.
Sorokin, Pajot signed right away,
Joe, right?
maybe if Palmieri stays.
We'll see
Now
what happens
that's
with that.
he's having a playoff series. He's as a playoff run
Oh, yeah.
here. That's really
Oh, yeah.
good. It's possible that he's back with Anders Lee. It's a different lineup, like
Yeah.
we're getting into off-season mode here pretty
Yeah.
quickly. But it's something to be excited about. I definitely understand your point. And if it's a
Yeah.
roster that presumably will look like this, minus a player from the expansion draft, unless some kind of deal is done, I'm confident they're pretty good. And if there's a free agent to be had that's going to boost the middle six or whatever
Yeah.
the case is going on, yeah, and if you got to remember, Wahlstrom hasn't played in games, so
That's true.
he's going to come back into the lineup. You got youngsters on D that
Yep.
could be coming up. So the roster probably won't look. It'll look as different as it did from 19 to 20, right? There's
Yeah.
very subtle differences and kind of rookies coming up. And the Giants had 3 rookies in the lineup this year, which is kind of crazy considering
Big.
how far they've gotten.
Real big.
And they've all kind of played well, right? Wahlstrom is a little streaky. Dobson's getting sheltered minutes. Sorokin, you help them win a playoff series, right? Like that's as
Right.
advertised. So it's a pretty good year for all the rookies involved, and the fact that they've made it this far and that we're still podcasting about the playoff run.
Yeah.
You got to be happy with it.
Remind me to ask you before we close the show a free agency question, but for now, let's get back to game 2. Let's just recap again because it's been a few minutes since we talked about it. again, the Islanders win game 2, 4-3 in overtime. The shot count was much better and closer, 42-39 in favor of the Bruins. And again, that could be a minor miscalculation. It could have easily been even. One thing of note is Barzal is still not a factor, in my opinion, on the score sheet. Game 2 was his best game by far. The first line was buzzing. Even Leo looked good. Komarov was out there making passes that I was like, okay, that was a nice, crisp, confident pass. You know,
a few nice shots on net, rebounds.
The one thing that gets me crazy about him is, and we're spoiled because of, you know, what we used to have in his spot, which was Anders Lee. There are many times where he's in front of the net and he can't get a handle on the puck to put a shot on net, and it, you know, trickles to the side of the net or it trickles away. But listen, that's not who he is, and he's doing what he can. That line was buzzing in game 2.
They look better.
They looked a lot better. I think for Barzal, it just comes down to a little bit of bad puck luck, and he's gripping the stick too tight. You saw that breakaway chance he had against Rask. He sent it right over the net. It was tough to see, but he's getting his chances, and he looks good out there. He's making nice plays.
He's getting some room. I think that's the difference in game 2 and it happened in the Penguin series too. They were giving him nothing.
Right.
And the difference was, and why it was less noticeable, was the Islanders were doing the same to their stars. In this series, their best players are being their best players on the Bruins. So it makes it shines an extra light on Barzal when they keep putting these graphics up of, you know, first line centers and this and that, and Barzal has a bagel next to his name with the goals.
Yeah,
it's tough, you know. Sometimes you can't argue with that. They definitely looked better. They definitely had their chances. There was one shift Eberle had 2 or 3 shots early in the game, and then kept kind of getting them. Are you, like, when you watch Komarov on that line, are you getting as frustrated as I am? Just like the thought of, like, I can't believe that this is the guy.
Yeah. Because, you know, exactly like I said before, like, you know, those opportunities where he was, and for the first time, I think in game 2, he solidified himself in front of Tuukka Rask or any goaltender throughout the playoffs thus far. He solidified himself in front of Tuukka Rask, and he's trying to be that distraction. He's trying to, you know, maybe
the whole
get
team's doing
deflections.
They're doing much better on the power play. That's been their success with a bunch of goals.
Right. But yes, to answer your question, I'm getting frustrated because and I'm not getting frustrated at him. I'm getting frustrated because there's no other option. He's doing the best he can, but he's not that player to finish, and it's just not happening. He's not a skill player. He's a fourth line checker. It's an unfortunate
and he's not
situation.
Doing that enough on this line.
But
he's not making enough room out there. He clearly wasn't in game 1. Like, you saw Barzal not have that room.
It's hard because is he supposed to do that? And then does that take away from the skill from Barzal and Eberle that they're supposed to, you know, manufacture? It's tough. It's like you have one gear at a place and the whole machine's broken.
And that was my issue with the team, really, the last 2 postseasons. It was like you were missing a guy here and there, even during the regular season. And this, like, the wheels, it's the whole car's wobbling at a certain point. You're like, how is one guy, like, I get you make the car, right? And you're like, these are all the pieces that you need to have to make this thing work right. Of course, if you remove one, it's not, right? But to not even just have a spare that's going to get you to where you need to go. We've all had a flat tire somewhere.
They wanted that to be Kiefer Bellows. They tried it a couple of times.
Well, that's a good. I don't mean to cut you off. Do you think so? Zajak's played well. I don't think we could take that away from him.
He played very well.
Walshham's ready for game 3.
This is going to be a question I had for you too.
Do we? Like, it's me and Barry Trotz in my bedroom making the decision. Do the Islanders, those Barry Trotz, put him back in and say, first line, you got to get going here. Like, let's give you guys a shot together.
Does he put Walsham on the first line
to get them going? If Zajak's playing well,
no, doesn't happen.
Even if you throw Pageau up there sometimes, like you give him offensive zone starts. If they're in the defensive zone on an icing or something like that, you put Zajac out there, you put Pageau out there. That's what I'm saying. You keep Zajac in the lineup as like the safety or something where you can throw him up there every once in a while, or you could throw Clutterbuck up there, whatever you want, if there's like a specific reason. But I don't see, my issue is that the power play is going strangely without Wahlstrom. You can add him in there and then and have an additional threat.
Yeah.
Why not do that?
I don't see it happening. I
It's
say there's a
I know why
30%
he won't
chance.
do it, but
Right. He just doesn't trust him to give him
no.
those elevated minutes. And as much as we hate to admit that, it's the truth. I don't know how well he'll do with, from moving from 12 minutes a night to 18, 19 minutes a night.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Give him
Um,
sheltered minutes. Don't put him out there all the time. Peugeot wants the minutes.
yeah.
He'll eat it up. Throw him out there every once in a while. You do it anyway.
Do they also want to move him out of his natural right wing position? Does that factor in at all? Is it a major change for him? Does it stunt his development?
I mean, I think the problem is that if they lost game 2, maybe the fact that they won game 3 with the lineup means even I feel like if Wallstrom's healthy, I think that's a bigger discussion. Because
On
Ajax
the
playing well, but I think Wallstrom does get back in at a
on the
certain
flip
point.
side, on the flip side of that, I also think about his spot on the power play, and it's basically the left wing position. So what's the difference? He's scoring goals there.
And that's what I mean. You're setting him up,
Yeah,
and he's got great vision. You just got to give him a chance.
it's an
If Barzal can come in with speed and give Wallstrom the opportunity to either take a shot or have the vision to dish it back, get it to the net, find Eberle, find the point.
yeah,
I think it could really work. I mean, that's probably just like a forward that plays with Barzal, right? Like, I
yeah,
don't think that's just Wallstrom. But Wallstrom happens to have really good vision. I think that's what makes him
yeah.
a double threat on the power play is that he can find he can make the puck through that seam pass. Like he has that ability to put it at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
You just kind of create a better opportunity. Like
It's an awesome
it's super
idea.
hard for me to like. I know why he won't, and you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. It's a trust thing. It's a defense
Right.
thing. It's a Komarov's not doing anything wrong. He's just not doing. He's not a liability, but they're not. He's not helping them
Right.
kind of achieve the thing, and that's what I'm
Right.
frustrated about. I'm like, it's the playoffs. Like, take a risk. You're playing a really good team with a really heavy top 6. Like,
Yeah.
you got to do something. Or late in the game, like if you're gonna have Wallstrom back in the lineup and take Zajac out, at a certain point, throw Palmieri up there, throw Walsh. Like, I'm so it baffles me that
Yeah.
even down in game 1 where they weren't playing well, you didn't see any of that, and it was so frustrating.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it's not gonna happen. Now, talk to me.
You're absolutely right.
Talk to me next season. I think there's a possibility you could see first line, maybe second line Wallstrom.
I wonder. I don't know.
As of right now, you got to see how Lee comes back and everything like that. And we're not gonna, that'll be an off-season discussion we have more in depth. But you got to see how Lee comes back. You have to see if Wallstrom takes another step forward in the offseason, solidifies himself as a pure goal scorer in the league, and that's gonna help boost the Islanders' offensive production. But like I said, that's a question for another time. When Wallstrom comes back, I do expect him to come back. I don't expect him to be healthy, but sit up in the rafters. We're doing well right now. No, I see him coming back in. Probably for Zajac. I think
he's playing good though.
he is playing well, but I almost wonder if he's playing well because he does well at this point in his career in spot starts.
I mean, Trotz is not exactly line matching, but he makes sure the players are out there to set them up for success. So
yeah,
but that's every player. That's all the time. There's and I think Trotz picked up from other coaches with the fourth line after a goal, whether a for or against, because it's just momentum. You either got to get it back or you got to keep it. So there's all these little things like, I don't know.
We'll see how that
chess.
shakes out with Wallstrom. Listen, if he comes back on the first line and Trotz trusts him up there, I'll be very happy. But I don't see it happening. But he did say he is a possibility. He meaning Trotz. Trotz did say he is a possibility for Game 3 Thursday night. So we shall see. Semyon Varlamov played real well in Game 2. What'd you think?
Definitely had his head back on straight. Whatever injury was nagging him that he wasn't able to kind of focus or whatever was going on, he's back. He looked really calm, cool, and collected. No exaggerated movements. He wasn't. Again, like I said, I missed those 2 Bruins goals in the third period, so I don't know what happened on them. But I'm not I wasn't worried about him long term. Again, like we say a million times, like he didn't forget how to play hockey, but it was nice to see him kind of back. And I
So
felt bad for Sorokin that maybe Varlamov re-solidified his spot, but
yeah,
um, it's good to know that both of them can kind of step in when the other
listen,
one's not playing well.
it's a strength. It's a bad problem. It's a good problem to have. Now here's the thing: the game starts. The first shot of the game for the Bruins ends up being a goal. Charlie Coyle puts on a move, albeit beats Nick Leddy, and it wasn't a great read by Scott Mayfield. He probably should have played between the dots, and he let him get behind. He let Charlie Coyle get behind him, but
And Letty doesn't get beat like that typically.
right.
Like he's a really agile guy, and it seemed like he just got walked.
Right. So at the beginning of the game, I almost said to myself, well, that's a save that you want him to make to get them going. Right. One of those saves that maybe he's not supposed to make. It was probably savable, but maybe it was a little bit of, all right, I'm back in nerves. Could have been a little bit of that. But after that, he was dialed in. I would love to see in game 3 a goalless first period for him, at least, because those early those early goals that he's been giving up are they're crucial, and their momentum swings, and especially at the Nassau Coliseum, he take the wind right out of the crowd sails. So you want to see him make those early saves and build the confidence for the players in front of him. However, he was very good from then on out. Played like the Semyon Varlamov we all know. I still have to look back at the Marchand goal because I can't tell if he was screened or not, but I do feel like if he wasn't screened, that's a very savable shot. No OT is necessary if he makes that save. I have to go back, like I said, and watch it again. I'm not sure if he was out of position. Maybe he was a little deeper in his crease, but that Marchand shot, glove side, in my opinion, I think it could have been saved. I don't know. Did you see it?
I don't.
It was on the power play.
I have to go. I mean, on those chances, you're giving even if he did see it straight on, it just beat him clean. The Bruins are going to get if you're giving a player a clean shot towards the net and it's their power play, there's a really good chance it's going in. Islanders goaltending is really good. The defensively doesn't let those opportunities kind of present themselves. But if you give the Bruins time and space, like Pasternak's 3 goals in game 1, like he had so much time.
Yeah, he did.
He's on one of them. He was able to like step towards the middle and just essentially, Sorokin came out and challenged a shot, and Pasternak just had a lot of patience and poise and took a half a step towards the middle and just beat him clean.
Yeah.
It's you're giving him too much space, and Marchand, you can give him all the shit in the world for being a rat, but he's good.
Yeah,
it's really hard to deny that, and
he's perfected his craft.
He has, for sure. Unlike a lot of other players in the league, and maybe we'll talk about that if we have some time later. But Tom Wilson, Ryan Reeves, all that kind of like it's disgusting. But and as much as I wish he got more than a fine, if he got fined at all for the licking thing, he has these little cheap shots. He knows how to ride that line. He doesn't do much stupid shit anymore. But then he goes and scores goals. He's a really good player.
Yeah, he's a really good 35 goal scorer. He's very good.
100-point guy. Like it's crazy how quickly he turned things around. It's actually insane.
Yeah. The third line has been out freaking standing. Like you mentioned before, Travis Zajak's been really good. Kyle Palmieri's having a series, or he's having a playoffs. And JG Pajot is once again proving to be that playoff performer that we acquired him for. It's not just against the Rangers anymore. He just does it night in and night out. Imagine we had a podcast. I should know this. Does he lead the Islanders in scoring, or is he tied with Beauvillier at least? I think there might be a 3-way tie going on right now.
Pajot and Beauvillier have 9 points apiece.
Yeah, there it is.
Beauvillier, Bailey, and Palmieri have 4 goals apiece.
There it is. So, yeah, third line's been outstanding, and the secondary scoring plus Casey Cizikas' goal that secured the victory last night.
Beauvillier, Bailey, Palmieri. Did I say that?
Yes.
They have 4 goals. Okay. I thought I said Pajot on accident. I was going to be really embarrassed.
No. That play last night to win the game. Cizikas is pinching the Bruins blue line. And a pass gets deflected by another Bruins skate and lands on the stick of Cizikas. Saw a lot of comments on, from Bruins fans, and not dogging them or anything, but oh, lucky for the Islanders, they wouldn't have won that game if Cizikas doesn't find the puck on his stick. And listen,
Isn't that half of the goals scored in the NHL every year?
As much of a gift as it was, he still needed to be in the right position to be able to do that. So he did his job, and it worked.
He made someone, especially their role, but a lot of hockey in general is just making the other team make a bad play.
Absolutely.
And he pressured the point to make a bad play, and he did. And then, he found the puck on a stick after doing two of the right things by not, flying the zone and not, he was poised in that position. He wasn't just going to cruise out in the neutral zone after my coaches say a bus turn. After the puck goes by, he was ready, and he's good about it. He'll stop and he'll come back into the zone instead of fly out. Yeah, I think he did the right thing. He forced him to make the bad play.
Right.
Yeah, and it bounced back on a stick. Yeah, he kind of made that happen though.
Let's not forget too, he also had Tuukka Rask waiting for him on the other side of the ice, who's one of the best goaltenders in the past almost 10 years. So he had to still beat Tuukka Rask. So. Great play by Cizikas. Turned the Jets on. He knew that I think it was Lauzon was coming on right behind him.
I think is 55, not Johnny Boychuk.
Is that Lauzon?
Lazar?
No, that's
is that a different guy?
Forward, yeah. This is Lauzon. I believe that's number 55. I could be wrong. You can tweet at me and yell at me if I am.
We're not a Boston Bruins podcast. I don't care. I don't care about the Boston Bruins defense.
Yeah, but the secondary scoring's coming in clutch, especially like we said. Barzal's still not on the score sheet too often. And the whole first line. So it's definitely necessary. But I have that feeling we're back at the Nassau Coliseum. It's coming, I think.
But as I keep saying, even without Barzal going. And Beauvillier scored the goal, and that's great. The power play is going 3 for 6, 50% out of nowhere. I guess tweeted out yesterday, the Islanders power play is into the chat, which I think is really important. It's the secondary scoring.
Yeah.
That's what's going to win you games.
Yeah.
If the Islanders can find a way to shut down the Bruins' top guys, just prevent 1 or 2 goals that are coming from them, because they're the ones scoring these goals.
Yeah.
They do not have an answer for them in the bottom 6. The Islanders, on the other hand, absolutely do.
Yeah.
And that can be the difference.
It's interesting because it's like a mismatch, right? The Bruins top 6 is superior to the Islanders top 6, whereas the Islanders bottom 6 is superior to the Bruins bottom 6.
Absolutely. I mean, and they have the structure to boot. So it's you have these, skilled guys that are really smart hockey players executing a great structure with a coach and a good defense. Yeah, I mean, it could be really good. So if Barzal and that even the Nelson line or whoever's out there, whomever rather is out there against the top 6 of the Bruins, if they can just be a net zero, win every shift, or again, 1 goal from them, it's going to happen. Pasternak is really good. If you take a penalty, they're going to capitalize on it. But 1 goal is not a big deal.
Right. They're
capable of scoring. They've scored. They scored 3 or more goals in a bunch of games in these playoffs. So they're obviously capable. They put 4 past Rask.
Yeah,
that's no small feat.
No, it's not easy to do.
So I think if they can if the approach can just be shut down the top 2 lines, third line keep going, chip in on the power play, I think the Islanders can actually win this series. But they can't. As fans, as the team, they cannot sit there and go, well, Barzal's got to be a factor. He could be a factor if he's playing good defense and he's not being a liability. That's what I'd like. That's what I would like to see.
So the power play, like you mentioned, is 50%, 3 for 6 in the series. And each of the 3 goals were timely, crucial goals, either giving the Islanders the lead or padding it. That's definitely. I'm not talking like, they were up 3 goals and they got a 4th. They were up a goal. They needed some insurance and they got it. What are you seeing on the power play? Because it's been clearly much better.
Movement.
Oh yeah,
They're moving
I'm glad you
their
said it.
feet. They're moving the puck. They're getting bodies in front.
That's
You know,
the biggest thing to me is that I've noticed the bodies in front.
yeah, and that was that first goal. I think there was two. Was it Peugeot and somebody else, or and Palmier? There was somebody in front. There was two bodies
Peugeot
in
was
front
in
of that
front.
first.
Bavilier in game one, that's how he scored. He was, it was a deflection. He was in front.
They're just getting bodies and they're
Right.
moving. It's
And
huge.
that's the thing that I like the most about when Noah Dobson's out there. I do have to say I really enjoy him as the power play quarterback because, you know, I think Ryan Pulock, as great of a defenseman as he is for the Islanders, when it comes to the power play, he's hesitant. And Dobson is just shuffling pucks out there, man. He's making quick decisions, crisp, smart passes, and it's forcing defenders out of their lanes, and that's what they
Yeah.
need to do.
I
They
think
need to be.
Dobson doesn't really have any body of work to go off of, and like, all right, I'm confident I'm not with the puck. Pulak is gripping his stick a little too tight. I think. I mean,
Right.
he's scoring some goals in the playoffs. Thankfully, I think he's got 2, if not 3, at this point.
Yeah.
It's that's the part where I think he's just overthinking things. Where Dobson's like, this is my role in this team. This is how we can be successful. And then when you start getting a little bit of that, he's taking shots. He's making plays. He's moving his feet a little bit. I mean, he's a slightly different style than Pulak, although they both have pretty good offensive prowess. I think Dobson's just not thinking as much, and he's a young guy. He can't.
Yeah.
He's got to go out there and just play confident. Where I think Pulak, who's been on this team for some time now, this is his 5th season, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, 6th season. I think he's overthinking it. He had he's having a season like none other before, on top of all the other stressors going on.
Yeah.
And he might just be he's overthinking it, gripping the stick too tight.
Yeah. Going into game 3, what do the Islanders need to do? Any thoughts on how they take game 3 at Nassau Coliseum?
I think the energy from the crowd, I think what you said before is perfect. And I wasn't going to say that earlier because I knew you were going to ask this question. I think a scoreless first period, or the Islanders up at least 1-0, it keeps that crowd into it, and they get huge momentum within that game. They need to play like they did in game 2. Other than the 2 goals late, and one of them being a power play goal, and I didn't see the penalty either. They need to play full 60 minutes, and they pretty much did that. I'd say they were playing much more of a complete game.
Given
there weren't
the OT.
really any lapses, even the OT. So I think they were making a lot less mistakes. The neutral zone regroups were a little bit better. They were kind of able to control the puck. Barzal got a little bit more room. They were playing their brand of hockey, which means that they were controlling the tempo. And that's what they said over and over on that NBC broadcast.
Yeah.
The Islanders are in full control of this game.
Yep.
And look, good teams are going to come back. It's the playoffs. They're desperate, all this kind of stuff. Bruins know they have to go back to Long Island. They have to go to Long Island. They have to go to the barn. It's going to be loud. They're going to have the crowd on their side, against them. They're going to be on the Islanders' side. If the Islanders in Boston take one on the road and split that and win game 2, it's huge. It's a momentum shift.
Oh yeah.
Going into that game, I know Trotz and a lot of other people don't necessarily believe in that, but it is when you're going to the barn. I think I fully believe it when it's actually.
And Trotz knows it too. That's why he calls them the 6th man.
The 6th man. So it's maybe there's not momentum so much between games 1 and 2, but maybe between 2 and 3, going back to the barn, knowing that at this point there's at least 2 more games there, right? If they win 1 there, there's 2 more after that at the very least. I really think it comes down to just playing a full 60 minutes and playing their brand of hockey.
Yeah, I think they need to copy the blueprint from game 2 plus the 60 minutes, right? They didn't get off to a hot start. It's going to be Varlamov. They
didn't end well. So it was like on either side of the game, they didn't, they played a good 50 minutes, and then the first 5 and the last 5 weren't great.
Yeah. So you need Varlamov because it's going to be him in game 3. You need him to be sharp early. You need the Islanders to come out skating, moving their feet. Kind of like they did in game 1. In game 1, they came out real well, and then they, I don't know, shit the bed. But they need to now combine those efforts, and they need to make it happen in Game 3, and I could see that happening with the roar of the crowd behind them. 12,000 fans. Is it still 12,000, or did they up it again?
I'm not sure. They were trying to pack more people in if they were vaccinated in certain sections and
Yeah,
things like that. So we will see. 12,000. I mean, the capacity is under 14. It's in the 13s, if I'm not
that's what I'm saying.
mistaken.
Almost full
So
capacity. So
it'll be full capacity. The Islanders will need that. It'll be
sound like
intimidating for the
25.
Bruins. I mean, the Bruins had their stadium pretty much packed out at around, between whatever it was, say around 18,000. So yeah, I think it could be a big factor, but they need. I think your point is well made. They need to not let it go in the first 5 minutes.
Right. Absolutely. Jake DeBrusque fined $5,000 for cross-checking Scott Mayfield to the back of the head. Dangerous play. Don't know how there wasn't a penalty called on it.
That's
And
what
listen,
I'm saying.
here's the thing. I get not wanting to water down the sport, but when we're making dangerous plays out there that could clearly hurt, somebody, permanently, that's got to be something that they address in the game. I don't know how we're getting to after the game, and I don't also know that I love only a $5,000 slap on the wrist, because that's what, $20 to him.
Yeah, I don't know what his salary is. I'm the argument that I just keep making is how the Department of Players Safety and the team of officials in this league are so wildly on different pages. How can officiating is ensuring the game is safe, that the players are safe, that there's no egregious plays, they follow the rules and all that kind of stuff. How that's not a call on the ice.
Yeah.
And then the league is like, no, that's a fine. It's both. It could be a penalty and no fine.
Yeah.
If it's a fine, it should have been a call on the ice. And it's concerning to me that the officials aren't calling it based on safety of the players.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, just a couple, maybe even less than a minute later, the Islanders were penalized and it resulted in the game tying goal. So it's just,
and then was Mayfield Mayfield misses a couple of shifts because of that. They got to check him out. Maybe he's a little, bonked in the head like that. Maybe you missed a couple shifts there. Ruins the rotation. It just sucks. I think Don Lushizen from The Athletic had an article early in the playoffs about the officiating and how much it was a joke, and what, I don't think that's the word he used, but he wasn't happy with it. I agree with that. I don't understand how it's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
They let him go. They don't let him go. It's coincidentals. The guy reacts, and then it's all of a sudden coincidentals. Meanwhile, the initial play should have been called something.
Right.
Or you should have ripped him away. You had the linesman come up right to him. Don't let him get to that point where Martin's going to come in and do, there were a couple of plays for the Islanders that were really frustrating in that Penguin series where they were like getting goaded into this stuff.
Right.
Even Pelech at the end of the first period, going right after whoever, Richie, who's a real pain in the ass. He's doing his job, and Joe McLeody was like, if Richie takes out, or Richie, whoever it was, takes out Pelech, he did his job. That's what he's there to do. And it's so frustrating that they don't just call it, because if you're going to call coincidentals, then that means, so where's the first penalty for the guy who did it? I don't understand I don't understand the order of how everything happens.
Yeah, I hate those.
If Pelech reacts and then they both get penalties, then the first one was a fucking penalty.
Right. That's what
I don't understand why you're waiting for them to even it up so that it's like, all right, it's not unfair. And that's like the conversation we had earlier this season, right? With that guy in Nashville, the ref in Nashville. Oh, it's all even up calls and this, and I don't like him. And they're making it easy for us to point it out. It's
absurd to me.
On top of the not safety aspect of it, it's just bullshit how they do it.
Yeah, it's absurd to me when there's two guys who are maybe jawing off at each other. One of them will drop their mitts, but the other one doesn't, and the refs jump in before. But the guy who didn't drop his mitts ends up in the box somehow. He didn't do anything. Maybe a little bit of trash talk, but nothing crazy.
They're both pushing each other.
Not even pushing.
It's like not even. Yeah, there's that stuff too. I'm just like, I just don't understand how it's like one guy gets goaded in and they both get it. It's like, well, call the first one. If the players knew, if Pelech knew that he was actually going to get a call, he would eat it. Every player would. They would just eat the stupid players doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
But not knowing that that's going to be the call and almost knowing I got to draw back, or else we're just going to take this all night.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. I don't understand the logic there. And it's like, okay, well, again, we want to make the game safe, but we're going to actually encourage players to retaliate and be mad at one another and actually want to go hurt the other person.
Yeah.
And then call the penalty. That's not controlling the game. That's not policing the game.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I'll never understand it.
Yeah. Crazy to me. But DeBrusque fined $5,000 for cross-checking. Oh, is what it is. I don't know if that's because of the reason that's the max fine. I don't really know how much I agree with the decision, but is what it is. I'm pretty sure DeBrusque has been in trouble before.
Yeah, it's like if you watch 30 Rock, it's Tracy Jordan. He's like, oh, I can just do whatever I want and then just pay the fine.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening? Is that enough
I guess.
Yeah.
We'll talk about more suspensions a little bit later. But game 3 on Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. They also just announced game 5 on Monday is at 6:30 p.m. So I know you and I were surprised by that surprise 6:30 start. The last time they had that, and
it was embarrassing.
This upcoming Monday, they will be starting at 6:30 again, but not before they have a game in between. Then on Friday, Saturday. I don't know. I work in the media. I know what I'm doing. Anyway, this is kind of around the rink, so let's just get to around the rink. But I do want to bring up that free agency question for you. It looks as though Seth Jones is headed to free agency. And as much as it would be difficult to do, let's put money aside and just, the pure fact, let's just say Lou Lamoriello decides I want in on Seth Jones. Is that something that tickles your fancy?
There are a lot of players that I'll let you finish your thought.
Well, my thing is, the Islanders Pelech and Pulock pair is, in my opinion, elite. As individual players, I don't know that they're that elite status that maybe Seth Jones can bring to the table. So
yeah, but that's the entire Islanders team.
They do lack a true number one defenseman. Could that be a huge thing that a huge asset for the Islanders moving forward?
Well, I'd ask, do they need it, or do they need to get Devin Taves back? Different question. Different question. But he's going to be expensive. I know you said money aside. I want to know, and because I don't know enough about his game and how he's in the locker room and all this other stuff, I don't know, is he the type of player that fits in with the culture of the team? I honestly don't know, and it's unfortunate. I don't want to say unfortunately, because it's a good. They're obviously, they're making it to the second round 3 years in a row. It's a lot more than other teams can say. So not only are they making the playoffs, but they're finding a way to be somewhat consistent. The character of these players is a big deal to this room, right? Like, you got to find the fact that Kyle Palmieri can come in and Travis Zajac, even Sorokin last year, and Varlamov in the beginning. You have new players on this team, and they're either getting embraced or they're not. You're seeing who's coming back and who's not. And not to say that Brassard was a poison in the room, and that's what caused them to, it's, they're able to kind of pick and choose who can come in. Wallstrom comes in. Like, they're kind of phasing players in, and there's a certain chemistry. So that's where I question it. Obviously, on paper, if I'm playing NHL 21, yeah, I want Seth Jones on my team, right? Like, that's good. But that's the theory part. In practice part, I don't know. I think playing for a team like the Islanders and having structure and an ownership coming from Columbus with a coach that's too much of a hard ass and John Tortorella, the players got tired of, going to a team with structure, a really close-knit room. Maybe he really needs that. So, maybe that can turn it around. I don't know how Lamoriello and Trotz make those decisions and how they try to figure that out, and who's actually going to work. Like, I don't know how you actually find out, and they nail it. Like, they're really making it like great decisions. Sorokin aside, because he was just pure talent. Like, we'll shoehorn this in. He doesn't speak English. It's fine. But like, I don't. With the other players like Pajot, like, I don't know how you find out like yeah, he's the right guy. Like you
Yeah.
can hear anything from anybody and different players, but like until you get, it's like starting any new job. I'm going through that, just trying to find your own
Yeah.
place
I
and
mean,
your
they go
own
through the
voice and stuff. Like
process.
it's hard. It's hard to do that when there's a very clear structure and chemistry between a bunch of people, and you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, I have an
I'm Seth
idea,
Jones.
and they're like, shut up, guy. Like we don't need you. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back on mute now. Like they don't do that, but it's still like I don't know how they do that. Like, I don't know how they mix these players in and make it work. Is Seth Jones that guy? On paper, yeah, of course. That's
It's
fantastic.
like
Right.
imagine Seth Jones comes in. He's like, "Hey, the advanced analytics love me." Everyone's like, "Shut the hell up."
Yeah. We don't know what that means. Don't bring your fancy book read in here. Don't be a smart guy. Just display good hockey character, chemistry, hit him early in head and, that's whatever Lamoureux says.
Uh, Regardless, though, that is another quote unquote superstar that's leaving Columbus. So you got to feel for their fans.
That is embarrassing.
It's so bad.
Especially if they let Torts walk after all these players. Like they didn't make the decision. Like they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. Tough
Huge
look.
yikes.
Definitely. Speaking of huge yikes, the Toronto Maple Leafs drop the series to the Montreal Canadiens, and the Habs are moving on to the second round. What an upset. A monumental meltdown.
That's not even monumental at this point if you're a Leafs fan, because that's just what happens. That's just what they do. And that
You're
I
up
really want
3-1, and you can't close out that series
again against a team like they lost to Columbus last year. They lose to Montreal this year. These are very beatable teams.
And listen, nothing against the Habs. They're a very good up-and-coming team. They've got some young skill. That kid Caulfield can snipe. Nick Suzuki is a legitimate center. I like Jesper Kotkaniemi, but that team had no business, except riding the coattails of Carey Price, beating the Toronto Maple Leafs.
But Price wasn't. I think Campbell had better numbers.
He did, but Price was a friggin' monster when he had to be.
And that's like what you said earlier, just like making the saves when you shouldn't, and maybe that's what he did. I think that the Leafs are a really good example of you can put the best players out there, but if there's something not gelling, and they all, I mean, from just being taking in hockey media and consuming hockey media, it's a lot about Toronto. So you hear a lot about that's always what they kick off 31 Thoughts about. Steve Dangle, I think, is funny. Some people think he's annoying. So I listen to that podcast. There's I'm taking in a lot of Toronto stuff. There's something going on there.
Yeah, it's tough.
And I think the big concern to me, right? Like you bring in Bogosian, who just won a cup. You brought in Thornton, who has a ton of experience. You still have Spezza around. You brought in Wayne Simmons. None of that worked. None of that. You brought in TJ Brody, who's a whole lot of talent.
They lose John Tavares.
They lose Tavares, but even still, they have Matthews, who scored. He missed time, scored 40 goals in 56 games. Not even because he missed those games. Marner was top 5 in scoring.
Yeah, one goal between those two.
That's so that was the Leafs secondary scoring not stepping up. So that's your not secondary scoring, and Montreal just getting goals from throughout their lineup. And that's the Islanders and the Bruins. You're looking at, on paper, a really, really good team who their top 6 will just snipe you to death. And the Islanders, where all of their lines kind of go through these lulls.
Yeah.
But you need your secondary scoring, and you need any kind of scoring to just come in and save the day. Yeah. Have these guys come in, have Palmieri score 2 goals, have Pajot have a day. Bavillier has a time. Cizikas with an overtime goal. Varlamov shining when he needs to. That's how you're going to win games, by committee. That's what this Islanders identity is all about. The Leafs just don't have that. If Matthews and Marner aren't going, it's all apart. Nylander was quiet. Tavares was obviously hurt. He was back on the ice, so that's good to see. And this is early in the series, but he wasn't going to come back unless they made the second round. And you probably bet money that they weren't going to do that. You would have made a lot of money. But, so I think that's the difference. There's something missing. There's something, and they change coaches. That kind of works. It's super weird. But good on the Habs, and now the Jets and Habs, who I believe both were not the favorites going in
Yeah, a
those
lot of people
series.
picked Edmonton to beat the Jets.
Again, 100 points in 56 games or whatever you wound up with at the end of the day, and
The
McDavid like
NHL,
quiet in the playoffs. And
the NHL must be so mad that they lost Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, uh, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner,
Sidney
William
Crosby.
Nylander, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, all out of the playoffs. They must be so mad that this is the way that. But this is the NHL. You cannot predict it, and there are no favorites. There's never a favorite. It's just not a thing.
I saw a list of this is the top 10 highest paid players. Carey Price is the only one making more $10 million or more and still in the playoffs.
Yeah. That's insane.
I don't know what that means. Frankly, I tried to I was like trying to analyze it before.
Well,
it just looks bad. It just like it doesn't look good.
All these bloated contracts are going to quote unquote superstars. So that's what that means. It means like you have like the superstars are gone.
Yeah, you don't have Kane. There's no Taves. I mean, the Lightning are the only team with like some really big contract numbers with guys that are like legit, and the Avs. I mean, McKinnon's still in, and Jesus.
Yeah, we'll talk about him because Jesus, best player in the world. But yeah, Jets and Habs coming out of the North. I think the Jets are gonna have fun with the Habs. I think they're a much.
That's a
better
goalie duel.
It is a goalie duel.
I think the Jets kind of come out.
I think the Jets come out big time in that series. I could see the Jets riding Hellebuck to the promised land, but then you got the Canes and Bolts series in the Central, and that's an exciting one. Two high skilled teams.
Bolts are already up 1-0 in that series.
Yeah, Bolts are already up 1-0. It's kind of time to see what the Canes are made of. They've been here before, and it's time to see if they can take that next step. Teravainen, a lot
like the Islanders.
A lot like the Islanders, but they have a lot of skill guys. Teravainen, Aho, Svechnikov. They're
so young still. Like their goaltending is the difference, and that's why.
Right.
Vasilevsky is a Vezina candidate, which Varlamov was not listed as a Vezina candidate. Can't believe we just kind of like let that go.
That's right. We should have mentioned that earlier. Semyon Varlamov was not a Vezina candidate.
Do you really care about that? Like, I'm sure it's nice if he wins it, right? Like.
I think he should have been nominated. I think it was a snub. But at the end of the day, and I'm not saying this is a guarantee. I'm not saying this is a lock. But if he's raising a cup, I don't think he cares.
No, I don't think any player cares about that.
Yeah. So
you want to be part of your team's success and win trophies and have hardware. But
he did have the numbers to be there over, maybe Philip Grubauer. Honestly, Grubauer could have stayed. Grubauer could have stayed. Vasilevsky probably should have been excluded, even despite him. I think he won last season. His numbers were not as good. So, but I digress. Let's talk about Avs Knights. And holy crap, did Nathan McKinnon take over game one of that series and say, "This is my territory. This is my game." He is. I'm not kidding. At least tied with McDavid for the best player in the league, in the world.
I think. I don't know, outside of the playoffs, and this is the difference, right? This is where McKinnon will, at the end of it, you're going to be like, well, McDavid scored all these points and a ridiculous 100-point season in 50 games and this and that. And you're like, McKinnon has this hardware and this Stanley Cup and this thing, and he was always a top 10 scorer. Like McDavid's probably going to make the Hall of Fame. Like
I'm also sure McDavid
that's not happening, but
very limited points in his.
And that was my next point. It's McKinnon does it consistently and does it in the playoffs. Granted, he's on the Colorado Avalanche with a very good support team and a Vezina candidate goaltender. Good GM, the whole organization, blah blah blah. Okay, yeah, I can understand he's getting the support he needs to kind of be the superstar that he can be. Imagine McDavid literally anywhere else, almost anywhere else anyway, and he probably he has 150 points this season if he has, he doesn't have to split up Draisaitl, be apart from Draisaitl half the time or whatever the case was.
And talk about a young team that is just on the rise. That team is so young and so good. McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. And Landeskog is going to be a UFA, but I'm not going to doubt even a little bit that that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
They get Brendan Saad, Kadri, who, by the way, appealed his 8-game suspension. I think he's got 4 games left. That's still undecided.
We're just gonna go back to that safety question. They're literally the CBA, the NHLPA was like, you know what we should do? You should be able to negotiate the severity of an injury or potential injury that you gave to somebody and the penalty in which you were served for that.
I think they had to.
We're just gonna lessen safety. Nah.
I think they had to do that. I think it comes down to legal rights as a person. When you start messing with somebody's salary and stuff like that.
I understand that to a point until it's somebody's safety.
Yeah.
It wasn't look,
I get it.
I don't want
he's a repeat offender.
I can't think of another example. It's not like he flipped the bird in the middle of a game, and you're like, all right, well, it was like, he tried to really hurt somebody. No one at your job is gonna be like, yeah, we should really negotiate your suspension without pay because this reason. And he's nope, absolutely not. If it doesn't happen anywhere else in life, you don't all of a sudden just get these rights.
The repercussion of that was Ryan Reeves, who at one point was holding a piece of Ryan or a couple pieces of Ryan Graves' hair at the end of that last game. And he received a 2-game suspension. So Ryan Reeves is out for the next 2 games.
And so the same thing that Tom Wilson does, he gets the suspension. Why? What is the difference between these things?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Not quite sure.
It's not like it wasn't as visible. It's not like these guys don't have a history of that. I even saw a joke like, if only there were guys like Ryan Reeves out there to police guys like Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
You know what? You just take him out of the game and you don't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
No one's just going to do it making dumb plays unless you have like a Brad Marchand licking people, whatever he's going to do. So, he still would slew foot somebody, and that's a dangerous play and all that. But I don't understand the mindset of this.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I don't know. But going back to the young players that the Avalanche have, they also have Bowen Byram, but more importantly, Cale Makar, who's probably, in my mind, going to be the best defenseman in the NHL as soon as next season. He is next level good.
Yeah, and that team is just setting their players up to succeed. And you bring in you added depth with Devin Taves.
Yeah,
I think that makes a huge difference. It takes a lot of pressure off. When you're playing without pressure, it's so good.
Makar is like the Nathan McKinnon of defensemen, and they have both of them.
Yeah, they got a up and down the lineup. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it all the way. If they would be playing the North. So is that what's happening?
It's been solidified that in a year where anything could have happened, we're still going to get an East versus East and a West versus West in the semis.
So it will be whoever the Avs and Knights,
the Islanders or the Bruins will be facing the Lightning or the Canes, and the Leafs or the Habs will be facing
the Jets or the Habs.
I'm sorry, the Jets or the Habs will be facing the Knights or the Avs.
So if the Avs make it, really either one of those teams, if either one of those teams make it out, well, they will, and they're playing the Jets or the Habs, they're going to walk all over them. That's not even close.
I would not doubt it, but
that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough. But I think we're good to wrap this episode up with a pretty bow there, John.
I'd say I finished my beer kind of a while ago. It's late.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to wrap it up here.
Just want to give a quick thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network, the Hockey Writers, and of course, all of you, our listeners. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Nassaumen Hockey, and find our work at the Hockey Writers. Game 3, Thursday night. Get ready. And until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.